Airbnb did what Uber did to the taxi industry. It filled a niche and brought a lot of competition into the market. So I personally think that the government's, like the hotel system, you got to remember, hotels are worth insane amount of money as a whole. I think you'll find that it's also putting a lot more pressure on the government for that side of things. They don't want Airbnb around, so that's impacting them.
So you might think, okay, am I
this is a perfect storm.
This is a lobbying sort of issue?
I think there's been a lot of lobbying from the hotel industry. I think there's been a lot of pressure from the homeless associations around Australia who are going, look, there's all these houses set up for Airbnb, but we need that for the homeless people. So you got to remember, the homeless situation wasn't caused by Airbnb.
No,
it was caused by the government not releasing land. Now,
and also bringing in ridiculous amounts of immigration.
That was the next one.
Immigration 101. That's
so
what it is.
The biggest solution, and I think for landlords, they need to be prepared for this.
It's Edge Radio Australia. Malloy with you, and we are ready, of course, for the Greater Wealth that we do every week. Fantastic show. Why is it a fantastic show? Because Derek Whittaker over here, full of knowledge, a true professional, a man of his time, puts together fantastic information for us to talk about, and he's just so in tune with what we need. And then, of course, we have Travis on the other hand.
Heartbreak.
And as my mama said, look, if you've got nothing nice to say, nothing at all. So about 60 minutes of silence when it comes to you and me, mate. So just joking. The Shave Monkey, good to see you, Travis.
Hang on, I've got an itch on my forehead.
Oh yeah, I can see that. So. All right. And what about Derek, mate? Are you happy to be here, mate? That's the most
mate, I'm as happy as Larry. The question is, how happy is Larry?
Good question, Larry.
I'm well.
All right, okay.
Is Larry standing up?
Let's leave Larry out of this for a moment. I want to jump into this because actually the subject matter.
I need to do a public service announcement first.
Okay.
So we've had questions about where my beanie had been.
Yes.
So what happened is it actually went into the wash and I didn't even know. That's what happens when the wife's on holidays for like a month.
Just shows how useless he is at looking after himself, but never mind. Now
the beanie is back.
He's back. Okay, we're going to jump into it. But the thing that I want to talk about, so the first subject we're going to talk about is interesting because you think to me, my first sort of thought was, we're going to talk about Airbnb. Like, okay, it's not something I use every week, right? So why does this relate to ourselves and everyday Australians? And I think, Derek, you're probably the best man to tell us.
I think the biggest... When I used to work in law accounting financial planning firms, one of the biggest growth of wealth was real estate.
Yeah.
In Australia in particular, okay? And your typical scenario was you buy a house, you rent it out.
Yep.
We call it buy and hold. Okay.
Buy and hold, okay.
That's the strategy.
Sounds like a card game, but
it's really simple. Then you've got the thing called Airbnb, which kind of disrupted the whole hotel industry in a big way. And it gave people opportunity to get additional income for their rentals.
Sure.
It challenged the hotel industry. So no, you didn't have somebody at reception smiling as you arrived and giving you, air conditioning and all this sort of stuff everywhere.
The normal goodies,
in the business departments, all that sort of stuff. But you had a situation where housing that was once difficult to get in hotels, given hotels will be built where a lot of people gather.
Sure.
In more regional areas and stuff like that, there's a need for people to visit those places. But if the hotels aren't there, then your next one is you look for Airbnb.
Yeah. Sure.
Additionally, families like mine, where we've got a lot of kids, it's harder to get accommodation in a hotel because they don't suit it. They don't have 4 little ones you can throw into a...
And your kids are well behaved.
That's right.
Imagine if you got terrorists.
And in one room, they're all clawing each other and all that sort of thing. So Airbnb solved a lot of issues.
Yeah. Okay.
What is the issue now is that government is wanting to control it a lot more.
Really? Government control?
Because they've caused a problem of their own device. They've let a lot more people into the country than we have housing for.
So true.
And then we go, okay, there are people struggling to get a rental in this place. And of course, rental prices have gone through the roof.
They have.
And of course, the building industry just cannot keep up. And with supply chains that have been disrupted over the COVID period, that's really impacted the building industry.
From someone who's
you're allowed to disagree. You're allowed to disagree.
It's not that the building industry can't keep up. It can. It's just it's next to impossible to release land because there's too much government intervention.
Well, yeah.
The approval process is just way too long. It's like to get the water or power connected, you're looking at a 2-year wait.
Sure.
Cool.
So, and that's all government. That's not builders or anything like that.
Now, what the
anyway, sorry.
No, great point. Thank you for clarifying that. Victoria started in last September of 2023 introducing a levy on Airbnb.
But it's not like Victoria to be over governing anything. I don't understand. This seems so strange.
Yeah,
The problem
it's
is
crazy.
if Victoria does it, we're gonna follow.
Oh,
and they did it as a 7.5% levy.
What?
7.5%.
That's huge.
Oh, could this be to pay Belton Road?
Mm.
I'm not sure.
There's also, and I'll get to WA in a minute,
Mm.
but they're also looking at wanting to introduce into New South Wales now.
Mm.
And of course, you know, the price of New South Wales are just through the roof in trying to get into the real estate game.
Sure.
And it's scarce. So a lot of property investors too, this is where it comes into play. Okay, negatively geared property, which is basically the expenses to hold the property are greater than the rental return and receiving.
Sure.
That's why Airbnb sometimes looks more attractive, because instead of renting it out for, let's say, $500 a week,
Mm-hmm.
you could perhaps do $250 a night.
That's right.
And exceed what you would have, gathered over a week.
Higher profits. Simple as that.
This is, but you don't have that long-term tenant, etc. So there's pros and cons to it.
Sure.
But for a lot of people, they thought, hey, Airbnb for the property investor is a great idea. Where it gets really interesting too for Western Australia is I was talking to one of my mates who is into the property investing world, and he was saying to me that there's proposed legislation that you'd only be able to rent out your houses on an Airbnb or short-term rental space for 3 months of the year.
I have heard this, yes.
Which makes it far more difficult to actually be viable, because obviously most tenants want a 6 month to 12-month lease.
Yep.
When they take on a rental. And you can understand that, because somebody with a family and kids and all that.
Security. You want to know that home's going to be home for a set amount of time.
And it's costly to move all the time too, because you got to get removalists in and out. And
I don't know. My last move was very cheap. It's very quick.
And you could argue it was government initiated.
Yeah. Go on. Couldn't help myself. Go on.
I'll probably get a lawsuit from that comment.
Oh dear.
But what you've got, like, people, social media influencers on TikTok saying, hey, you look at the actual costs of Airbnb. Okay, you break down the costs.
Mm-hmm.
It's blowing out what would be like $179 a night.
Sure.
These levies now going on and a hosting fee. You're looking at something like $400 a night. And they're going, why would we do this? Why we would just book back into a hotel?
That's right.
So it's a double-edged sword, this, in terms of if government does this, it's going to affect not only just the landlord's situation, which I will add, copped a lot of it during COVID in what they could and couldn't do. The tenants suddenly had power and whether they couldn't pay.
The tenants always had power, but anyway.
Yeah, but they had even greater power.
Certainly did
in that period. And I hear
as a landlord,
I hear
getting someone out of the house is an absolute. It's insane. It is so heavily geared towards tenants who do the right thing. It's the landlord has all the power, but the moment a tenant behaves badly, it's next to impossible to get rid of them, especially if they're Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander.
Yep. Look, any rental situation should be a win-win for everyone. A landlord really wants the rent paid on time and the house to be looked after. Okay.
Yep.
It's really simple. The tenant wants security that, hey, I'll do the right thing by you. Leave me alone. I want my privacy. Right. It's a win-win if that can met, but it's complicated, right? It can get complicated in this situation. The flow and effect of this as well with Airbnb is it affects industries like tourism.
Of course it does.
Okay. Yep. So if you've got really regional areas, particularly in Australia, where somebody has a property and they want to let it out as Airbnb, and now you're putting these kind of restrictions on them, further tax levies, it's going to affect how long people stay in places.
The flow and effect to
the local economies of those regional areas. It's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, again, to me, it's just more government interference, and basically they're putting their hand in the cookie jar just another time. What is it with Labor governments? The way of solving everything is a tax. So honestly,
who was it? I think it was Obama who actually said this. I could be wrong, so please don't quote me on this one.
Okay.
So they're saying if you want people to stop doing something, you tax the shit out of it. Well, he didn't say tax the shit out. He said you just tax it. You just keep increasing the taxes until it becomes too expensive to actually use. So you got to have a look at with Airbnbs. Why is the government looking to do this?
I agree.
Because they're trying to push people back into the hotel system. Because if it becomes too expensive, let's say you've got Nana and Pop, the kids have moved out of home. They've got 2 spare bedrooms. So a lot of the original Airbnbs, oh, that's a carton.
That is a carton.
I left my phone not on silent. So they did it as a second form of income on a house that they're no longer using.
Sure.
So you had a lot of retirees or close to retirement people setting up a couple of bedrooms, so people could rent them out, $100 a night, $150 a night. That's how Airbnb started.
Sure.
Hotels didn't like it because they were losing a crap load of money. And like Derek said, it made it a lot easier for him because he could just grab 2 rooms, put the kids in one room, adults in another room, happy days. A lot easier. It opened up a lot more access to places like Hyden, Kalgoorlie. Well, Kalgoorlie's got hotels, but the hotels in Geraldton aren't the greatest. I've stayed out a few of them. They're pretty terrible, but some of the houses that were Airbnb are absolutely amazing. So Airbnb did what Uber did to the taxi industry. It filled a niche and brought a lot of competition into the market. So I personally think that the government, like the hotel system, you got to remember hotels are worth insane amount of money as a whole. I think you'll find that it's also putting a lot more pressure on the government for that side of things. They don't want Airbnb around, so that's impacting them.
So you might think, okay, am I
this is a perfect storm.
This is a lobbying sort of issue?
I think there's been a lot of lobbying from the hotel industry. I think there's been a lot of pressure from the homeless associations around Australia who are going, look, there's all these houses set up for Airbnb, but we need that for the homeless people. So you got to remember the homeless situation wasn't caused by Airbnb.
No,
it was caused by the government not releasing land. Now,
and also bringing ridiculous amounts of immigration.
That was the next one.
Immigration 101. That's what it is.
The biggest solution, and I think for landlords, they need to be prepared for this. They've got to take this into their account for the next 10-year plan.
Yeah,
house prices are still going to go up for a while, but it's going to get to the point they have to release the land. They've got to deal with the homeless problem. And what's going to happen once they start releasing the land prices are going to start stagnating or go backwards.
I half agree with that. I absolutely, totally believe that there is going to be a substantial drop in the real estate market. I really genuinely
when the land gets released. The land has to be released first.
Yeah, look
the supply and demand is just too great.
Yeah. So everyone needs a place to live, right?
Yeah.
But the system right now is not sustainable. Yes, yeah, absolutely, right.
So I have to ask, how long since the fire? When was the fire?
In November.
Yeah. And we're now in March.
Yep.
December, January, February, March. That's 4 months.
Correct.
And you still can't get your own place.
Correct.
As an Australian citizen.
Cannot find a place.
But yet we can find migrants' houses.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. So I'm
sorry, this is a real bed bug for me.
Yeah, but we're not going to go after there because we're going to stay
our own neighbourhood first before we start helping
absolutely. It's so true. It's so true. It's so true. And there's also a lot of other biases that are coming involved. So
why? Because you're a white male.
Well,
you're a white Indian.
Yeah, that's funny you should say that, because I'm telling you right now, there is two groups who are finding homes, who are at the top of the list and who can get homes quite easily, and that is women and Indians, right?
Indians?
Yes, absolutely.
Really?
Indians are like, okay, this is a bit of free enterprise, okay? So a lot of Indians are going out, and what they're doing is they're renting a house, and then they're renting the rooms out for XYZ amount each, right? And making a profit out of it. So they've turned it into a business.
The Asians have been doing that for decades.
Doing it really, really well. So
survived to university days.
Well, there you go. And as an Indian of lighter complexion, I don't qualify.
You're an albino Indian.
I know, bit of a shame. But so I'm not. So we are seeing that happen. And quite frankly, if you're a male out there looking for a home right now, you're going to be looking for a very long time.
Especially if you've got a cat.
Yeah, if you've got a cat, and I do. Yep. So you're going to be sleeping in your car a lot, but or finding friends. And I've been very lucky to been very well looked after. But okay, look, forgetting all of that, let's look at again the financial aspects of all of this. And the reality is that
they're trying to kill Airbnb.
When you have government stepping in to do this, they are literally look, I mean, they also tried to kill Uber. Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they don't like. Late. Uber was too big.
Toothpaste was out of the tube. But okay, like what is it? What is it? And I'm going to keep harping on about Labor governments because they've got my goat. They really have. I'm looking back and I'm seeing a pattern of Labor governments. Okay, they're just tax, and are anti-competition. They do everything possible to kill competition.
You, and I don't get this.
Yeah, we've got some people who are actually speaking online.
Labor. Come back to me on this one. I'm just going to like their constitution.
And for those who are sending through messages on social media, thank you very much for that. We'll get Travis to bring those forward in just a moment. But okay, mate, look, what are your thoughts? I mean, on the whole Do you think this is just too much government interference?
I think if you buy a piece of land, you should be entitled to do what you want with that piece
That's
of
what
land.
I think too.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like that it's restricting what you can and can't do, because I mean, the landlord is taking the risk here. They're taking, you know, if a bank is involved, they're taking out a loan.
Yep.
Then they're taking on the risk of government interference. They're taking on the risk of a tenant who doesn't do the right thing by them, or property managers who don't do their job and aren't on point and report things to them.
There's a few out there,
as the case may be, and that's just buy and hold. But in Airbnb, if they're going to manage it themselves or have a system to manage it, I go fantastic. I think free enterprise allows people to solve these problems and finds a way to do it. The market has a way of filling the gap.
And I also want to make something clear, okay? I'm not promoting Liberal or anyone at the moment, quite frankly, any other political party. I'm just pointing out the fact that life seems to go downhill in an absolute hurry every single time that Labor Party, that socialist goddamn party is in play. And they are anti-competition. More competition improves the breed, okay? That's the thing, okay? And it improves everyone's opportunity.
What you're going to see happen is if it gets really bad, people who love investing in property will go overseas.
Of course it will.
Yeah.
And that money will be
already
taken
looking at it. So anyway.
to other countries, and they'll look at what are the risks there, what are the political risks there, and am I going to get a better return for investment? And what they'll discover is that land in other parts of the world is a lot cheaper than it is in Australia in their own backyard.
Yep.
Yeah. So I just want to, I've been doing a bit of looking.
Can I just finish one more thought on that? There are, however, other risks involved with international investing.
Sure.
And I know this because I ran a property syndicate overseas once. Okay. So there are pros and cons to this. You've got to consider what suits your risk profile. And if you get into a syndicate like I did, where a number of people are invested in it, you've got to look at what the wants are of those individuals as well.
Everyone wants something different, don't they? Yeah, okay. No, that's very true. I mean, it's okay. So if let's just say me in my current situation, if I went, look, screw this, I've had enough of being pushed around by government. I've had enough of my free speech being attacked. I've had enough with being told what I can and can't do.
Leave the country.
Leave the country. What if I go and just go find another country, set myself, go, hey, you know what? Had a few trips to Bali, love Bali, okay? Got some friends over there who live there. You know, what's the stop from a financial point? You know, what are the risks there? And I can't expect, I'm throwing this on you, so I can't expect a thorough answer. But, you know, of buying property over there.
You can't. Not in Bali. You've got to be. I think you've got to be either married or be a Balinese citizen to buy land.
In terms of international investing, one of the things that I look at is political stability. Okay. If the nation is there's political unrest, that is a huge consideration. I mean, you don't necessarily want to be buying into war-torn areas, and I state the obvious. But you know, we have heard of
land.
Coups going out.
Look, some of these places you want to put a pool in, someone drops a bomb. Fantastic, right?
The thing about put a target down right here, guys.
The thing I discovered about property investing is what customer do you want to be dealing with, right?
Great point.
And there's like 3 levels of customers. I'm going to break it down. So there is the higher properties, right? The top end, the mansions and all that sort of stuff, who have all the bells and whistles.
Yep.
The issue with that is, do you want to be dealing with a client that, you know, the garage door's not closing and this is an emergency? Right?
That's because the Bentleys in the back.
That's right.
Exposed to
exactly.
Is this called the Karen factor? I'm just
no, that's because they've got a $300,000 car. They don't want someone.
And they're paying high rent for a reason.
They are,
and so they want those things fixed. I'm going, look, I'm paying for it. You better fix it.
Fair, cool.
Right?
I get it.
Then let's go to the other extreme, the low end of property, where you know the garage door now has been stolen, and they don't consider that an emergency.
Yes.
No, that's because they haven't paid their rent for 3 months.
Yeah. Well, whatever it might be, then you're dealing with properties that are often in high crime areas that attract that kind of client that may necessarily, you know, there's other risk. And I'm not going to point out suburbs and say this.
I will. Rangeway.
No, don't.
No, I've got units in Rangeway. The higher crime rate, it is there, but the flip side is the rate of return is insanely good.
The rate of return is fantastic. It can be positively geared.
Right.
But, you know, I had a situation where I was investing internationally and that tenant burnt down the house after not paying the rent for so many months. Okay?
Wow. Okay.
The other risk that I had was I had a property manager who was stealing and taking advantage of people who were out of state, right? And hadn't banked any of the tenants' money. So these are sort of things I've learned along the way. And anytime you go international, if you're trying to do it from Australia, is that communication takes longer.
True.
just because of the time differences, you can't just go down and look at the property and say, okay, I can see what's going on. And sometimes the property managers live 40 minutes from the actual property, and that in some situations as well. So they're not going to just pop down and look at it as well. So
no.
There's all these pros and cons to international. You've got to really look at it and really hopefully know the area, do your due diligence on the area, and pick which socioeconomic. A friend of mine who's an experienced property investor, he used to like to go for the crowd that have got good jobs. They're wanting to buy their own place, which means they're keen to improve themselves and improve their lives and keep up a good credit score and all that kind of stuff. He would like to target them because he said they're ambitious. He said, I don't want to deal with the high end because it's just, you'll never make money off it because you have to fix the light globe. You have to get somebody to do this and that. You don't want to deal with the low end because you're also always risking the place being demolished and what's the technical word, Travis, you're in the property sector?
Trash.
Malicious damage. Malicious damage is what I'm thinking. Trash, yes. That's a literal term. You want to kind of be in between. That was where he liked it. And I think you've got to ask, who do I want to be dealing with? In your situation, I think it's different because you're talking about moving from A to B, and residential is always different from that. So if you're looking for a holiday home, right, that you want to visit for a few months and then come back to Australia or something,
just like a home will do for the moment. But okay, yeah, cool.
You know, if you're going to move, you've got to go, right, well, how am I going to get an income?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot more to it.
Do I want to maintain my lifestyle at Australian foreign currency level as opposed to my surround? So if you're in a country there that the foreign currency is a lot lower and everything's really cheap, that's great. But if you try to get a job there, guess what? You're not going to be earning Australian wages. Yeah,
that is so true. That people look at other countries and go, oh, look, that's so cheap, whatever. That's fine, but exactly that. It's not for the locals, isn't it? Because everything's at a different level.
The other thing you got to take into account, so I'm going to use Vietnam as an example because I know Vietnam better than all the other Southeast Asian countries. So as a foreigner, you are not actually allowed to stay in a house if you're not married to the owner or someone who lives in that house.
Really?
You have to stay in a hotel room. So there's a lot of these other little quirks that the government puts in place. So when Biz Luan and I got married in Vietnam, so I wasn't actually allowed to stay at the family home until after we got married.
Good Catholic boy, or not
Christian.
Anyway. Sorry. So old habits die hard.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to bring up before when you said about Labor, was it always the Labor government? So what I've done, I've actually pulled up the Labor Constitution. So this is the National Labor Constitution. So if you're wondering why Labor is so shit, there it is. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm just going to like scroll down a little bit for you. So obviously ALP, National Constitution, you're going down. We want part 4. Okay. So if we go down, here we go. The Australian Labor Party is a democratic socialist party.
I know.
Like it's right there in the Constitution. So anyone who says that Labor is not socialist, you're an idiot. You're an absolute muppet.
But they're the people that call other people the N word, the shorter N word, okay? Because they don't realize that particular N word from Germany in the 30s and 40s, actually that Z is an S. It's socialist, right?
Yeah.
People wake up to yourselves. And I don't want to be harsh, but like I see so many people now who have these opinions on things they've got no education on. Right?
Now, talking about education, don't forget the one and the only Derek Whitaker right here, bluskyfactory.com.au.
Could not agree more.
It's really important to get the basics of understand the finances before you go into this. So he does have a great show called Building the Wealth Foundation. And for the people who are a little bit more advanced and you want to get into like options trading and things like that, he also has another course called
20 Weeks Options Premium course. Yeah.
Did it change its title?
No.
Okay.
Well, sort of, but
yeah. Anyway, I've done both the courses. They're phenomenal. They're insane. So yeah, just make sure you do that.
Thank you.
Education is power. Like, knowledge is power. Away we go. And it's, if you've got this information, whether it be, in any financial sense, obviously you can move forward and get the best advantage for yourself. So get yourself on board. Blu Sky Factory and Orange Brick Road.
Yep. And if you do need details and you can't find their websites, just go to the edgeradioaustralia.com.au.
Yep.
Are we .com?
No, there's no AU, mate. There's just .com.
Why don't we always put the AU in?
Because
we got to get the
strange. AU. No, we don't. No, we don't.
No, we're Edge Radio Australia.